Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the English Globe, your favourite place to learn English through history, culture, and conversation. I'm Julia, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. We have a truly fascinating topic lined up, one that stretches across deserts, mountains, valleys, and over 2,000 years of human history.
Hey everyone, I'm Adam. Today, we're diving into the story of the Great Wall of China. You've probably seen pictures of it winding over mountain ridges like a giant dragon, but did you know it's more than 21,000 kilometers long? That's more than 5 times the width of the United States. But it's not just long. It's full of legends, mysteries, history, and even myths that many people still believe today.
That's right, Adam. The Great Wall isn't just a wall, it's a symbol. For many, it represents China's strength, ancient wisdom, and architectural genius. But what many don't realize is that the wall wasn't built all at once, or even by a single dynasty. Its history is as complex and layered as the bricks that make it up.
Before we begin, let's take a moment to welcome our amazing listeners from all over the world. If you're tuning in right now, we'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and drop a comment below telling us where you're listening from. Have you ever visited the Great Wall? Or is it on your travel bucket list? And let us know. What do you think about today's topic?
Yes, we read every comment, and we really appreciate your opinions. And remember, we're here not just to share stories, but to help you practice and improve your English through real, meaningful content. So, let's begin our journey along one of the most iconic structures in world history, the Great Wall of China.
To start with, let's paint a picture in your mind. Imagine standing on a high ridge in northern China. Before you is a wall that stretches to the horizon, snaking over hills and cutting through valleys. The stones beneath your feet are ancient, some laid there over 500 years ago, others over 2,000 years ago. The wind is dry, and the landscape seems endless. That is the power of the Great Wall. It's not just a building, it's an experience.
And what's even more amazing is how many people think they know the Great Wall, but actually don't. Many imagine it was built all at once, maybe during a single emperor's rule. But in reality, it was built over many centuries, by many dynasties, using different materials, different designs, and for different purposes.
Exactly. It began as a series of small, disconnected walls built by different kingdoms long before China was united. These were defensive walls, built to keep out rival tribes or enemies. Later, during the reign of the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang in the 3rd century BCE, these walls were connected. That was really the birth of what we now call the Great Wall.
And while Qin's contribution is often celebrated, it was under the Ming dynasty, about 1,500 years later, that the wall became what we recognize today. The Ming rulers rebuilt and expanded it using stronger materials like bricks and stones, adding towers, watchposts, and garrisons. But that's something we'll explore more deeply in later sections.
Today, in this first section, we're going to set the foundation. We'll explore what the Great Wall is, where it's located, and why it was built. We'll also look at why it's so famous and why it still matters in modern times, not just to the Chinese people, but to the whole world.
The wall stretches across northern China, from the Bohai Sea in the east to the Gobi Desert in the west. It passes through mountains, plateaus, and plains. But it's not just one wall. In fact, it's a network of walls, trenches, natural barriers, and fortresses that were built, rebuilt, and connected across centuries.
And this is where the numbers can surprise you. The total length of all the sections of the Great Wall built by different dynasties adds up to over 21,000 kilometers. Just to give you an idea, that's over half the circumference of the Earth. Some sections are well preserved, like the popular tourist site at Badaling near Beijing. Others are ruins, slowly disappearing into the sand and grass.
So, Why did the ancient Chinese build such a massive wall? The simple answer is protection. The northern borders of China were vulnerable to invasions from nomadic tribes, like the Xiongnu and later the Mongols. These groups could move quickly on horseback, so the wall served as a barrier and a warning system.
It's interesting that the wall wasn't just about keeping people out. It was also about control, regulating trade, migration, and military movement. It was a way for the emperor to project power to the edges of his empire and remind everyone that this land belonged to China.
In that sense, the wall was not just military. It was also political and psychological. Imagine being a soldier stationed on the wall, looking out into the vast unknown, guarding your country. It must have felt both powerful and lonely. We'll talk more about that in later sections too.
Now, one of the most common myths we hear is that the Great Wall is visible from the moon. People have repeated this claim for decades, but guess what? It's not true. Astronauts have said they can barely see it from low Earth orbit, and only under perfect conditions. It's just too narrow and blends into the landscape.
That's a perfect example of how the wall has entered global imagination. It's more than stone and mortar. It's a legend. People imagine it as this magical, eternal line that guards all of China. And while some of those stories aren't accurate, they show how powerful the idea of the wall has become.
Another thing that's often misunderstood is how many people died building the wall. Some old stories say it was 1 million people. While we don't have exact records, it's true that many lives were lost. Workers included soldiers, farmers, prisoners, and forced laborers. The conditions were often harsh, and many sections were built in dangerous terrain.
And these human stories are important. Behind every brick there was a person, someone who worked in the cold, under the sun, carrying stones, digging trenches, building towers. The Great Wall is not just a symbol of national pride. It's also a memory of human sacrifice and effort.
That's why this podcast is not just about facts and dates. It's about stories, real and legendary. Over the next 9 sections, we'll talk about the wall's geography, construction, myths, soldiers, explorers, modern restoration, and even its role in movies. We'll look at the wall from every angle.
But before we move on, here's a quick reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, please give it a like, subscribe to the English Globe, and leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from. Are you learning English in Asia, Europe, Africa? We'd love to hear from you.
Also, let us know, did you learn something new today about the Great Wall? What part of its story fascinates you most? Is it the ancient history, the legends, or the way it still inspires people today?
All right. That brings us to the end of our first section. In the next part, we'll zoom in on the geography and structure of the wall, what it looks like, how it was built in different places, and how its design changed over time. You don't want to miss it.
Thanks for listening, friends. Stay curious, stay inspired, and as always, keep learning English with the English Globe.
Let's begin by exploring where exactly the Great Wall is located. Most people imagine a single wall winding through the mountains near Beijing, but that's just one small part. In truth, the wall is spread across 15 provinces in northern China. It stretches from Shanhaiguan, where it meets the Bohai Sea in the east, to Jiayuguan, a remote desert pass in the west.
That's right, Julia. And one of the most incredible things is how the wall adapts to the land. In the east, it climbs steep mountain ridges, offering breathtaking views. In the central regions, it runs through dry plains and plateaus. And in the far west, it becomes a rough line of earth mounds and trenches, nearly swallowed by the desert sands. The terrain shaped how each part of the wall was built.
Different landscapes required different building strategies. In Rocky Mountains, builders used cut stone. In plains and deserts, they relied on rammed earth, a traditional Chinese building method. That's why some sections, like those near Beijing, are well preserved with stone and bricks, while others like in Gansu province, are slowly eroding, built only from clay and packed soil.
Let's talk numbers. The official length of all known parts of the wall, including trenches and natural barriers like rivers and hills used for defense, is 21,196 kilometers. That includes actual walls, about 6,000 kilometers of them, along with over 10,000 kilometers of trenches and natural defenses. This measurement was confirmed in a major survey conducted by China's State Administration of Cultural Heritage in 2012.
It's hard to imagine that distance. Just think, if you started walking from one end to the other at a pace of 20 kilometers per day, it would take you more than 2 years to walk the entire length, without a single day off. That gives you a real sense of the scale and ambition behind this ancient project.
Now, let's look closer at some famous sections. Badaling, near Beijing, is the most visited part. It was built during the Ming Dynasty with large gray bricks and has been fully restored. It's wide enough for 10 soldiers to march side by side. Badaling became world famous after U.S. President Nixon visited in 1972. Since then, it has hosted millions of tourists every year.
Another stunning part is Mutianyu, which is also near Beijing. It's known for its beautiful surroundings, rolling forested hills, and fewer crowds than Badaling. The towers there are unique, with 3 watch windows instead of the usual 2. Mutianyu also has a modern cable car, which makes it more accessible for tourists who can't climb long staircases.
Then there's Jiayuguan, located at the western edge of the wall. This fortress stands in the Gobi Desert and was once called the first pass under heaven. It marked the boundary between China and the vast deserts beyond. It's a powerful reminder that the wall wasn't just a defense, it was a gateway, regulating trade and movement between civilizations.
Each section was built with military logic. Builders designed the wall with watchtowers every few hundred meters. From these towers, guards could see far into the distance. If they spotted an enemy, they lit beacon fires to warn other towers. The smoke signals traveled across the wall, alerting troops quickly. It was like an ancient emergency network.
There were also fortresses and barracks, which provided rest and protection for soldiers. Alongside the wall were paths and roads, used to move troops and supplies. Some areas had double or triple layers of walls for extra security. The builders designed everything with defense in mind, using the terrain to their advantage. Steep cliffs, rivers, and ridges became natural allies.
What's fascinating is how the wall wasn't just a line on a map. It was an entire system of defensive architecture. The wall itself formed the backbone, but it relied on other components: forts, trenches, moats, and natural barriers like rivers. The engineers were incredibly strategic. For instance, some walls were curved to slow down enemy movement and force them into narrow passes.
Speaking of materials, early walls, especially during the Warring States period and Qin dynasty, were made from rammed earth. Workers pressed layers of soil and sand into wooden frames, then packed them down tightly. These walls were effective, but vulnerable to weather. That's why later dynasties, especially the Ming, used bricks, tiles, and cut stone for durability.
The bricks used during the Ming era were high quality. Some were marked with the names of the brickmakers, soldiers, or officials who supervised construction. These markings helped track responsibility. The stones were transported using carts, sleds, animals, and human labor. In steep areas, builders used ropes, pulleys, and even human chains to move heavy materials up the cliffs.
It's estimated that millions of workers were involved over centuries. That includes not just soldiers, but also peasants, craftsmen, prisoners, and slaves. Some people were conscripted, while others were punished with labor. These workers faced extreme conditions: bitter cold, scorching heat, long hours, and dangerous heights. Many died on the job, and their graves still lie near the wall.
There's a common phrase in China that says, Every brick of the wall is soaked in human blood. While that might be a little dramatic, it reflects the suffering behind the structure. The wall is not just a marvel of engineering, it's a monument to the pain, endurance, and sacrifice of the Chinese people across generations.
Let's also not forget the regional variations in construction. In Shanxi, for example, parts of the wall blend into low hills, while in Hebei, the wall appears as a towering ridge of brick and stone. In Inner Mongolia, long earthen berms stretch across the steppe. These variations reflect the local geography, available materials, and military needs of each region.
In recent years, scholars and archaeologists have discovered previously unknown sections using satellite imagery and drones. Some of these lie in remote areas and had been forgotten for centuries. These discoveries continue to expand our understanding of the wall's true scale and complexity. It's like the wall is still revealing its secrets today.
And that brings up a big point. The Great Wall is not one continuous wall, like a snake across China. Instead, it's more like a network. Some parts connect, others don't. Some sections overlap or branch off. Over the centuries, dynasties built walls where they needed them, then abandoned or replaced them as borders shifted.
So, when we talk about the Great Wall, we're really talking about a living monument, something that evolved with China's history, politics, and landscape. It's a symbol of unity, but also a patchwork of regional efforts. That's what makes it both confusing and beautiful. Every brick tells a different story from a different time.
We hope this section gave you a clearer picture of the wall's geography and structure. It's much more than just bricks and towers. It's a massive, dynamic system that adapted to time and terrain. Whether you visited it or not, you can now see the wall through a more detailed and informed lens.
If you're enjoying this journey, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the English Globe, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Have you ever walked on the wall yourself? Or which part would you most like to visit? We'd love to know what you think about the wall's architecture and scale.
In the next section, we'll take a deep look into the early history of the wall, from its origins during the Warring States period to the first unification under Emperor Qin Shi Huang. We'll see how the Great Wall truly began and what it meant in those early days.
Now that we've explored the geography and structure of the Great Wall, it's time to go back to where it all began. Most people think of the Great Wall as one long wall built by a single emperor, but its true origin is more complex and fascinating. The story starts over 2,500 years ago, during one of the most chaotic periods in Chinese history, the Warring States period.
That's right. Between the 5th and 3rd centuries BCE, China was divided into many small states constantly fighting for power. These kingdoms, like Qin, Zhao, Yan, Wei, and others, each built their own defensive walls to protect against rivals and northern nomadic tribes. These early walls weren't connected and were usually made of tamped earth.
These earthen walls, called fangcheng in ancient texts, were simple but effective. The rulers didn't have the resources to build massive stone structures, so they used local materials: sand, clay, straw, and even reeds. Workers pressed these materials into wooden molds to create solid, high walls that could block horsemen and slow down attacks.
One of the earliest examples is the wall built by the state of Qi in modern-day Shandong province. Built as early as the 7th century BCE, it's considered one of the oldest wall systems in China. Over time, more states followed suit, creating a patchwork of regional defenses. These were the ancestors of the Great Wall.
But everything changed when one state rose above the others: Qin. In 221 BCE, the Qin ruler Yingzheng conquered the other kingdoms and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. With the new empire came new ambitions, including the idea of linking these walls together into one continuous defense.
Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with control, both of his people and his borders. He ordered the connection and expansion of the existing walls in the north to protect his empire from the Xiongnu, a fierce nomadic group that lived on the Mongolian steppe. These were skilled horsemen who raided Chinese villages and trade routes.
The emperor didn't build a new wall from scratch. Instead, he connected and strengthened the older regional walls, filling in gaps and expanding the system. This was the first time the idea of a Great Wall began to take shape, a single unified defense stretching across the northern frontier.
But it came at a huge cost. To build and connect thousands of kilometers of wall, Qin Shi Huang conscripted hundreds of thousands of workers. These included not only soldiers, but also peasants, prisoners, and even scholars who opposed him. Conditions were brutal: intense labor, extreme weather, and long isolation from their homes.
There are ancient Chinese texts that describe the suffering of these workers. Many died from starvation, cold, exhaustion, and disease. It's said that bodies were buried near or even within the wall itself. While we don't have exact numbers, some scholars estimate hundreds of thousands of lives were lost during this early phase of construction.
The early Great Wall under Qin wasn't made of stone. It was mostly rammed earth. Workers used heavy wooden hammers to pound layer upon layer of dirt into wooden frames. When dried, these walls became surprisingly strong. In dry regions, some of these earthen walls still stand today, over 2,000 years later.
Interestingly, the Qin Wall didn't stretch all the way across China like the later Ming Wall. It focused on the northern border, covering areas in what is now Gansu, Inner Mongolia, and northern Shanxi. These were the areas most vulnerable to attacks from northern tribes like the Xiongnu.
Qin Shi Huang was also known for building other great projects, like the Terracotta Army, the Link Canal, and the early version of the Imperial Road Network. But the Great Wall was perhaps his most ambitious defense project. It symbolized his desire to control nature, space, and people.
But after Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BCE, the Qin dynasty collapsed quickly. It lasted only 15 years. The next dynasty, the Han, also used and repaired the wall, but their approach was different. The Han extended the wall further west to protect trade routes like the Silk Road, which was becoming very important at that time.
So in the Han dynasty, the wall wasn't just military, it was also economic. It protected merchants, goods, and caravans as they moved from China through Central Asia to the Middle East and even Europe. In that sense, the wall helped shape global trade long before modern globalization existed.
One key section built during the Han dynasty ran through what is now the Hexi Corridor, a narrow strip of land between the Tibetan Plateau and the Gobi Desert. Controlling this corridor allowed the Han to manage trade, migration, and military defense all at once. It became a vital link between China and the wider world.
But over time, the wall was neglected, repaired, expanded, and forgotten, depending on the strength of the ruling dynasty. Some dynasties didn't prioritize it. Others, like the Northern Wei and the Sui, made additions. But the most famous and long-lasting parts of the wall came much later, during the Ming dynasty, which we'll discuss in Section 4.
Before we move on, it's important to understand that the wall's early history reflects not just military strategy, but the story of China's unification. The wall was both a physical and symbolic boundary. It separated what was Chinese from what was not, and helped define the early Chinese empire's identity.
It also shows the evolution of Chinese engineering, administration, and ambition. From simple earthen mounds to massive stone fortresses, the wall grew with China's power. And each section, each dynasty, left its mark, shaping a monument that is far more complex than it first appears.
So, to sum up, the Great Wall didn't begin as one wall. It started as many regional walls during the Warring States period. Then Qin Shi Huang connected them to create a defensive line for the first unified empire. Later, the Han expanded and adapted it to protect trade. This was the foundation for everything that came afterward.
We hope this look into the wall's origins gave you new insight into its real history. If it did, give this video a like, subscribe to the English Globe, and tell us in the comments, which part of the wall's early history did you find most surprising? Had you heard of Qin Shi Huang before? Let us know.
In Section 4, we'll move ahead in time to explore how the Ming dynasty rebuilt the wall on a massive scale, using bricks, watchtowers, and fortress systems to protect against Mongol invasions. This is the part of the wall most people recognize today.
We've now reached one of the most important chapters in the story of the Great Wall, the era of the Ming dynasty. If you've ever seen pictures of the wall with its towering stone paths and elegant watchtowers, you were likely looking at a section built by the Ming. Their work turned the wall from an ancient barrier into a powerful military and political symbol.
That's right. The Ming dynasty ruled China from 1368 to 1644, and during this time, the empire faced a serious threat from the north, the Mongols. Even after the fall of the Mongol-led Yuan dynasty, Mongol forces continued raiding Chinese borders. The Ming realized they needed a better defense system, and that meant rethinking the wall entirely.
Unlike earlier walls, which were often made of earth, the Ming wall was built to last. They used bricks, stone, and mortar, especially in the eastern regions. This construction created a much stronger, more durable wall that could resist time, weather, and enemy attacks. In fact, many of these Ming-era sections still stand today, more than 400 years later.
One of the key features added during the Ming period was the use of watchtowers and beacon towers, placed at regular intervals. These towers allowed guards to see enemies from far away. If a threat appeared, they could light fires or send smoke signals to alert the next post. Messages could travel hundreds of kilometers within hours.
In addition to towers, the Ming engineers also constructed barracks, arsenals, and fortresses. These weren't just walls. They were part of a complex military system. Soldiers lived along the wall full-time, rotating through outposts and training regularly. The wall became both a defense structure and a place of daily military life.
One of the most famous Ming structures is the Shanhaiguan Pass, known as the first pass under heaven. Located where the wall meets the Bohai Sea, this fortress protected the eastern entry point into the heart of China. It was guarded by a series of high walls, gates, and towers, and it was the scene of many dramatic moments in Chinese history.
Another iconic part is the Jiayuguan Pass, at the far western end of the Ming Wall. This section is surrounded by desert, and its fortress is known for its imposing towers and gates. Jiayuguan was called the Mouth of China because it marked the edge of civilization before the endless desert. Merchants and soldiers passed through its gates on their way to the Silk Road.
And we can't forget the famous Badaling section near Beijing. Built during the Ming dynasty, Badaling became a symbol of China's strength. Its wide, strong path and high towers allowed for heavy defense and troop movement. Today, it's one of the most visited parts of the wall, restored in the 20th century for both tourism and historical preservation.
What's amazing is the precision and planning behind the construction. The Ming didn't just build blindly, they studied the terrain carefully. They built the wall to follow mountain ridges, making it harder for enemies to cross. In flat areas, they dug moats or added double walls. Everything had a purpose. It wasn't just a wall, it was strategy carved into stone.
The Ming Wall also reflected advances in Chinese engineering. Builders developed new techniques to bake stronger bricks, create better lime mortar, and construct drainage systems to protect the wall from rain. These innovations allowed them to build across extreme environments, from snowy peaks to arid deserts.
But building such a massive wall required an enormous labor force. Just like in earlier times, the workers included soldiers, peasants, and prisoners. The work was grueling and dangerous. People carried heavy stones, dug trenches, and climbed steep cliffs. Accidents and deaths were common. Some were forced to work far from their homes, often for years at a time.
Despite the hardship, the wall became a powerful symbol of unity and defense. The Ming emperors used it to promote the idea that the empire was protected, strong, and civilized. In contrast, the people beyond the wall, the Mongols and other nomads, were seen as outsiders. The wall was more than a structure. It became a line between order and chaos, us and them.
Interestingly, though the wall was designed to keep out invaders, it wasn't always successful. In 1644, the Ming dynasty fell when a rebel army opened the gates of the wall at Shanhaiguan. They allowed the Manchu forces to enter China, who would later establish the Qing dynasty. So even the mighty wall could be defeated, not by force, but by betrayal.
That moment showed the wall's limits. While it was an incredible defense system, it couldn't prevent internal problems like corruption, rebellion, and political collapse. In the end, no wall, no matter how long or strong, can protect a nation from its own weaknesses.
Still, the Ming dynasty left us the most complete and impressive sections of the wall. Their construction efforts created a monument that would survive centuries. When people around the world think of the Great Wall, it's the Ming version they imagine. Stone walls rising and falling with the mountains, stretching endlessly into the distance.
And even today, the legacy of the Ming Wall lives on. Tourists walk along its paths, students study its architecture, and historians explore its secrets. The wall is not just a memory of the past, it's a living piece of culture, reminding us of the dreams and fears of a powerful empire that sought safety behind stone.
Before we move on, we'd love to hear from you. Give this video a like, subscribe to the English Globe, and let us know in the comments. What surprised you most about the Ming dynasty's role in building the Great Wall? Do you think walls like this are more symbolic or practical?
In Section 5, we'll take a step into the world of myths and legends. We'll share some of the most famous stories, like the tale of Meng Jiangnu, and explain how myths helped shape the wall's reputation over the centuries. You won't want to miss it. It's a beautiful and emotional part of the wall's story. As we move deeper into the story of the Great Wall, we reach a part that touches the heart more than the mind, the world of myths and legends. Throughout history, the wall has inspired not only builders and soldiers, but also storytellers, poets, and ordinary people. These legends are often sad, beautiful, and powerful, and they give the wall a soul beyond the stone.
Absolutely. One of the most famous and emotional legends is the story of Meng Jiangnu, a woman whose tears moved heaven and earth. It's a tale of love, loss, and tragedy that has been passed down in Chinese culture for over 2,000 years. It's not just a story, it's part of how the wall is remembered and felt.
Here's how the legend goes. During the Qin dynasty, a young woman named Meng Jiangnu married a kind man named Fan Xiliang. Just days after their wedding, he was taken away by imperial soldiers to work on building the Great Wall. Like many others, he had no choice. He was forced to leave everything behind, even his new wife.
Time passed, and Meng Jiangnu received no news. Winter came, and she feared her husband might have died in the cold. So she decided to walk hundreds of miles to find him. She climbed mountains, crossed rivers, and braved the freezing winds, carrying warm clothes she had made to keep him safe. But when she finally reached the wall, she was told he had died, buried beneath it.
Heartbroken, she wept beside the wall for days. According to the legend, her grief was so deep that it shook the heavens. Suddenly the sky turned dark, the ground trembled, and a long section of the wall collapsed, revealing the bones of her husband. Her tears, it is said, brought justice when nothing else could.
It's a powerful image, one woman's tears breaking down the wall built by an empire. Of course, this story isn't historically confirmed, but its meaning is clear. It speaks about human suffering, love, and the cost of greatness. The wall may be a symbol of strength, But this legend reminds us of the people who paid the price.
In fact, there's a temple dedicated to Meng Jiangnu near the Shanhaiguan Pass. People still visit it to pay respect to her spirit. Her story has appeared in Chinese operas, paintings, poems, and films. For many Chinese, she is a symbol of loyalty, resistance, and emotional truth in the face of power and cruelty.
Another popular myth is the idea that the Great Wall is visible from space, even from the moon. This has been repeated in textbooks and tourist guides for decades. But let's clear it up. This is actually not true. Astronauts, including those from NASA and China, have said that the wall is very hard to see from low Earth orbit and definitely invisible from the moon.
Why the confusion? Probably because people imagine the wall as this giant structure, like a skyscraper laid across mountains. But in reality, the wall is long, yes, but it's also narrow, often blending into the land around it. It doesn't stand out like people imagine. It's more a line in the earth than a tower in the sky.
Still, this myth remains popular. Maybe that's because we want the wall to be more than it is, to be magical, larger than life. And in a way, that's what myths are for. They add meaning. They help us see not just what something is, but what it represents. In this case, human achievement on a massive scale.
There are also smaller stories, tales of haunted towers, lost treasures, and spirits of fallen soldiers who still walk the wall under the moonlight. Some villagers near the wall believe that certain parts are cursed or protected by ancient guardians. These beliefs show how the wall lives not just in history books, but in the hearts of local people.
And we can't forget the poems and songs written over the centuries. One famous line from an old poem says, "The bones of 10,000 lie beneath the wall, and yet the green hills stay silent." It reminds us that while the wall stands strong, many lives were lost to build it, and their voices are carried only by the wind.
It's these legends that make the wall more than stone. They make it personal. Behind the long lines of brick there are voices, stories of love, sacrifice, fear, and hope. Whether true or not, these stories give the wall an emotional layer that facts and measurements can never provide.
And that's something universal. Every great monument, whether it's the pyramids of Egypt or the cathedrals of Europe, has its legends. The Great Wall's myths connect people across time, making history feel alive. You can walk the wall and imagine what it meant to those who walked there centuries ago.
Exactly. And when people visit the wall today, many are moved not just by its size, but by its spirit. The stories passed from mother to child, from teacher to student, shape how people feel about the wall. They turn cold stone into living memory.
We'd love to hear from you. What did you think about the story of Meng Jiangnu? Do you believe that legends like these are important, even if they aren't historical? Like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and tell us in the comments, which myth or legend of the wall moved you most?
In our next section, we'll shift from legend back to reality. We'll look at life on the wall, what it was like to be a soldier guarding it, what daily routines were like, and how people survived the cold, hunger, and danger. This is where we see the wall not as a tourist site, but as a home and battleground for real people. So far, we've explored the wall's history, structure, and stories. But behind every stone and tower were the people who lived and worked there, especially the soldiers. Today, we want to take you inside that world. What was it like to be stationed on the wall? What did soldiers eat? Where did they sleep? And how did they survive the harsh conditions?
It's easy to forget that the Great Wall wasn't just a border, it was a military zone. During the Ming Dynasty, it's estimated that over 1 million soldiers were assigned to guard the wall at different times. These men lived in fortresses, barracks, and even watchtowers, depending on the location and level of danger.
Their daily life was far from easy. Most soldiers woke up at dawn, stood for inspection, and began their shifts on patrol. Some guarded the gates, others watched from towers, and many walked along the wall looking for signs of movement. dust clouds, fires, or animal trails that might suggest invaders nearby. The work was long and often boring, but it could turn deadly in an instant.
The wall passed through harsh environments, deserts, snowy mountains, and empty plains. In winter, temperatures dropped below freezing. Soldiers wore wool and leather coats, sometimes lined with fur, but they still suffered from frostbite and illness. In desert areas, sandstorms could blind a man in seconds. Nature was often more dangerous than enemies.
Food was simple and often not enough. A basic meal might include millet porridge, dried vegetables, and sometimes salted meat if supplies were good. Water was stored in barrels or drawn from local springs. In remote outposts, soldiers sometimes went weeks without fresh food. Starvation and scurvy were constant risks during bad seasons.
Soldiers lived in groups, usually sharing stone or wooden barracks. These rooms were small and cold, with straw mats on the floor. Some outposts had small hearths for heat and cooking, but many did not. In winter, men slept in shifts, so that at least one group could stay near a fire while the others stood watch. Sleep was short and often interrupted.
But they weren't completely alone. Around many wall sections, especially near passes and forts, settlements began to grow. These were home to farmers, blacksmiths, merchants, and the families of soldiers. Some towns started as military supply bases and turned into small cities over time. These settlements were vital for food, weapons, and repair materials.
One such town was near the Juyongguan Pass, just northwest of Beijing. It served as a military hub, providing shelter, armor, and supplies for soldiers on the wall. Over time, merchants arrived to sell goods, tea, fabrics, pottery, and even entertain the troops. Life along the wall was hard, but these settlements brought small signs of civilization.
Still, danger was always close. Watchtowers were manned 24 hours a day. At night, soldiers listened carefully for animal sounds, wind shifts, or footsteps. A sudden fire signal could mean a Mongol raiding party was on its way. When attacks happened, soldiers had only minutes to grab weapons and alert others through the beacon system.
The beacon towers were the wall's ancient communication network. Built on high points, each tower was within sight of the next. In daytime, smoke signals were used. At night, fires lit the sky. One puff of smoke might mean 100 enemies. 2 puffs meant 500. The entire army could be warned in hours using this simple but brilliant method.
During quiet periods, soldiers also helped repair the wall. They patched cracks, reinforced towers, and cleared paths of snow or sand. Some learned basic construction skills and carpentry. Their job was not just to defend, but to maintain the very wall they lived on. The wall itself was their home, shield, and burden.
For entertainment, they sang songs, told stories, and played simple games with stones or dice. Some wrote poems or carved messages into the bricks. These carvings, names, dates, and short notes, can still be found on parts of the wall today. They're like time capsules, letting us hear whispers from the past.
But life on the wall was not meant to last forever. After a few years, soldiers were rotated out, if they were lucky. Some stayed for life, especially if they had families living nearby. Many others died on the wall, from battle, illness, or the sheer hardship of daily life. The wall is not just a monument, it's also a graveyard for unknown heroes.
Even in times of peace, the wall's soldiers remained on alert. Their presence served a psychological purpose as well. A line of uniformed men watching from towers was meant to intimidate enemies and remind everyone that the empire was strong. The wall was both defense and message. Don't cross this line.
And this raises an important point. The wall was not just a physical barrier. It was a social and emotional wall too. It separated people, China from the outside world, city from wilderness, order from chaos. For those who lived on it, the wall defined who they were, what they feared, and what they fought for.
If you're still with us, we'd love to know. What part of life on the wall surprised you most? Could you imagine living in a freezing tower for years, defending a stone wall in the desert or snow? Hit the like button, subscribe to the English Globe, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
In our next section, we'll step back from daily life and look at the symbolism of the wall, how it has been viewed in Chinese culture, politics, and even global imagination. The wall is more than bricks and myths. It's a national icon, and it carries deep meaning for generations.
Up to now, we've talked about the wall's physical strength, strategic design, and human stories. But in this section, we're diving into something even more powerful: the symbolism of the Great Wall. Because while bricks may erode and soldiers may fade, symbols can last forever. And the Great Wall is one of the strongest symbols in Chinese identity and history.
That's true. For many people in China and around the world, the wall isn't just an ancient structure. It's a representation of endurance, unity, protection, and pride. Over centuries, it's evolved from a military defense into a national emblem, a reminder of what the Chinese people have overcome and accomplished.
Let's start with how the wall has been used politically throughout Chinese history. During the Ming Dynasty, for example, the wall wasn't just practical, it was also a message to the world. It declared the strength of the empire. It drew a clear line between the civilized Chinese empire and the barbarian nomads of the north. The wall became a statement: this is who we are, and this is where we stop.
That theme of separation continued for centuries. Many dynasties used the wall to send a symbolic message to their people. It wasn't just about protection. It was about identity. Inside the wall was culture, agriculture, cities, schools, and order. Outside the wall were the unknowns: desert, wildness, threat, and difference. The wall shaped how China saw itself and its neighbors.
In many Chinese poems and proverbs, the wall represents loyalty, strength, and sacrifice. For example, one old Chinese saying goes, "If you have not climbed the Great Wall, you are not a true man." This was quoted famously by Chairman Mao Zedong, and it's still written on plaques at some wall locations. It reflects how deeply the wall is connected to personal achievement and national pride.
And Chairman Mao is a great example of how the wall's symbolism took on new meanings in modern China. In the 20th century, when the People's Republic of China was established, the wall became a tool of political inspiration. Mao and other leaders promoted it as a sign of the nation's strength and resilience, especially during tough times like war, famine, or foreign occupation.
During the Second Sino-Japanese War, the wall again became a powerful image in Chinese propaganda. Though it wasn't used militarily, its long shadow reminded people of their cultural history. It was a visual symbol of resistance, one that had faced waves of invaders for centuries and still stood tall.
In today's China, the Great Wall is a source of cultural pride and unity. It's shown in schoolbooks, painted in public art, and featured on everything from stamps to sports advertisements. The Chinese government continues to use the wall as a national branding symbol, especially when talking about unity, security, or heritage.
You also see this in tourism. The phrase, "Protect the Great Wall, love China," appears on signs and posters all around the country. It's not just about protecting an old structure, it's about preserving what the wall represents. Visiting the wall is seen as a patriotic act. It connects people to their past and reminds them they're part of something larger.
But the wall's symbolism isn't just for China. Globally, it's become a universal symbol of human effort. When people around the world think of China, the Great Wall is often the first image that comes to mind. It's used in movies, documentaries, and textbooks as a symbol of mystery, might, and ancient wonder.
Think about it. There are few landmarks in the world that carry such powerful meaning. The Eiffel Tower might represent beauty and love. The Statue of Liberty might represent freedom. But the Great Wall? It's about defense, endurance, and history written into the very mountains. It's a message left behind by generations of people who wanted to protect their world.
There's also a deeper philosophical idea hidden in the wall's meaning. In Chinese culture, the wall can represent the balance between openness and defense. Too much wall, and a society becomes isolated. Too little wall, and it's exposed. This concept has even been applied to cybersecurity, foreign policy, and cultural preservation in modern times.
Yes, and speaking of modern times, it's interesting how the Great Wall also reflects changing values. Once, it was a wall of separation. But today, China is more connected to the world than ever. Some scholars now view the wall as a reminder of what happens when fear leads to isolation. Others say it shows how much humans are willing to do to feel safe and stay together.
Even in the global conversation about walls and borders, the Great Wall often enters the debate. When countries talk about building walls today, whether physical or metaphorical, the Great Wall is frequently mentioned. People ask, do walls really work? Are they meant to keep others out? Or to keep a nation together from the inside?
In that way, the Great Wall becomes more than a Chinese monument. It becomes a global conversation about security, culture, fear, and hope. And that's why studying it is so important, not just to understand China, but to understand humanity. The wall holds a mirror to every nation that's ever asked, how do we protect what we love?
And let's not forget how the wall also represents recovery and preservation. After centuries of neglect, the wall is now being restored. Organizations, volunteers, and even local villagers are working to save parts of the wall that are falling apart. It's a national effort that says, we still care. We won't let our history crumble.
That message is so powerful. The wall may have started as a line of defense, but today, it's a bridge across time. It connects ancient emperors to modern students, soldiers to tourists, poets to engineers. It reminds people of pain, power, and pride all at once. That's the true magic of the Great Wall's symbolism.
So, what does the wall mean to you? Is it a monument, a myth, a memory, or a message for the future? We'd love to know your thoughts. Give this video a like, subscribe to the English Globe, and tell us in the comments, what does the Great Wall represent to you? Do you think walls protect or divide, inspire or isolate?
Coming up next, in Section 8, we'll explore the wall in popular culture, how it's been shown in films, games, books, and international media. We'll look at what's real, what's fantasy, and how the wall continues to inspire storytellers across the world. As the Great Wall of China stretches across history and landscape, it has also stretched its influence into the world of popular culture. The wall is not just an ancient monument. It's a constant source of inspiration for filmmakers, writers, game developers, and artists around the globe. Let's talk about how the wall has appeared in the stories we watch, read, and play.
Right, Adam. One of the most famous modern portrayals is the 2016 Hollywood film called The Great Wall, starring Matt Damon. The movie mixes fantasy and history, imagining a massive battle between Chinese soldiers and mythical creatures called the Taoti. While the film had stunning visuals, it received mixed reviews for its story and accuracy.
True. Many critics and viewers said the film took creative liberties with history, but it did introduce global audiences to the wall in a new way. The idea of the wall as a defense against not just human invaders, but also mythical beasts, shows how the wall has become a symbol for mystery and fantasy, as well as real history.
But the wall has appeared in culture long before Hollywood. In Chinese literature, there are countless poems and stories that mention the wall, sometimes as a backdrop for love stories, sometimes as a symbol of isolation or courage. For example, the famous Tang Dynasty poet Li Bai wrote about the wall in his poetry, expressing feelings of distance and patriotism.
The wall is also a common setting in Chinese historical dramas and TV series. These shows often dramatize the lives of soldiers, builders, and emperors connected to the wall. They bring to life the struggles, politics, and emotions behind the stones. Such media helps keep the wall's history alive for modern viewers.
Beyond literature and film, the Great Wall appears in video games as well. Games like Age of Empires, Civilization, and Total War: Three Kingdoms include the wall as a strategic element. Players can build, defend, or attack it, showing how the wall's military importance still captures imaginations.
That's a great point. Video games turn history into interactive experiences. They let players step into the shoes of generals or builders, making decisions about the wall's defense. This hands-on approach creates a unique way to learn about the wall's significance and challenges.
In art, the wall has been painted, photographed, and sculpted countless times. Artists have captured its curves along mountain ridges, the texture of its bricks, and the play of light at sunrise and sunset. The wall's shape and history inspire creative expressions around the world, from traditional ink paintings to modern installations.
The Great Wall also features in music and dance performances, often symbolizing Chinese culture and history. It appears in ballets, operas, and folk performances, telling stories of heroism and tragedy linked to the wall. These artistic forms help connect people emotionally to the wall's legacy.
And don't forget about documentaries. Filmmakers from different countries have produced films exploring the wall's construction, history, and cultural meaning. These documentaries combine expert interviews, drone footage, and reenactments to give viewers a detailed look at the wall, both its grandeur and its human cost.
Interestingly, the wall also appears in international media as a metaphor. News outlets, political cartoons, and opinion pieces often use the Great Wall as a symbol of defense, isolation, or perseverance. It's a powerful image that crosses cultural boundaries and speaks to universal themes.
Despite all these appearances, there's sometimes a risk that popular culture can oversimplify or mythologize the wall. Movies might focus on fantasy battles, games might reduce it to a strategic asset, and some stories might ignore the real suffering behind its construction. That's why it's important to balance entertainment with accurate history.
Absolutely. That's one reason why podcasts like ours are important. We want to share the wall's story with honesty and depth, celebrating its achievements while remembering its human cost. Popular culture can open doors, but understanding requires curiosity and research.
If you've seen movies, read books, or played games about the Great Wall, we'd love to hear your favorites. What did you like? Did you learn something new? Did a story or image change how you think about the wall? Like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and write your thoughts in the comments below.
Coming up next, in Section 9, we'll discuss the conservation efforts to protect and restore the Great Wall. We'll explore the challenges of preserving such a massive and ancient structure, the role of local communities, and how modern technology is helping save this world wonder. As impressive as the Great Wall is, the truth is that it faces many challenges today. After thousands of years exposed to wind, rain, human activity, and even earthquakes, parts of the wall are damaged or disappearing. That's why conservation and preservation are urgent topics. Let's explore how China and the world are working to protect this incredible monument.
Yes, Adam. The wall stretches over 21,000 kilometers, making it one of the longest structures ever built. This vast length means that preservation isn't easy. Some sections, especially those near cities and tourist areas, have been well maintained, but many remote parts have been left to weather or are damaged by natural erosion and human activity.
Human activity is a big issue. For years, locals sometimes removed bricks and stones to use in building houses or roads. Agriculture and farming near the wall can cause damage as well. Plus, tourism, while important economically, can also wear down the wall's surface, especially when thousands of visitors walk the same paths daily.
In response, the Chinese government has launched several preservation projects. These include restoring damaged sections with careful attention to historical accuracy, creating protective zones around important parts and limiting tourist access in fragile areas. The government also works with international organizations like UNESCO to ensure the wall's protection.
UNESCO designated the Great Wall as a World Heritage Site in 1987. This status helps attract funding and expertise for preservation. It also raises global awareness about the wall's value, not only as a Chinese treasure but as a cultural heritage for all humanity.
Technology plays an important role too. Modern tools like drones, 3D scanning, and satellite imaging help experts monitor the wall's condition without causing further damage. These technologies provide detailed maps and data that guide restoration work and help prevent illegal construction or vandalism.
Local communities are key partners in these efforts. Many villagers near the wall have a deep connection to it. They participate in maintenance, guide tourists, and educate visitors about respecting the site. This cooperation helps create sustainable tourism that benefits both people and the wall.
However, preservation is a delicate balance. Restoring the wall too much can remove its historical character, while doing too little risks losing parts forever. Experts debate how much to rebuild, what materials to use, and how to protect the wall while keeping it authentic.
International collaboration is increasing as well. China works with scholars, architects, and historians worldwide to share knowledge and develop best practices. Conferences and research projects focus on preserving not just the wall's structure, but also its history and cultural significance.
Tourism also plays a dual role. It brings awareness and funding, but can strain the wall's fragile environment. Many popular sections like Badaling have strict visitor limits, and efforts are underway to develop tourism in less visited parts to reduce pressure on crowded areas.
Environmental threats like climate change add new challenges. Extreme weather, such as heavy rains and droughts, can accelerate erosion. Scientists study these effects to design better protection methods that will keep the wall standing for future generations.
In short, preserving the Great Wall is a huge and ongoing responsibility. It requires respect for history, care for nature, involvement of local people, and cooperation across borders. It's not just about saving bricks, it's about protecting a symbol that means so much to so many.
We'd love to know your thoughts on this. How important do you think it is to preserve ancient sites like the Great Wall? What challenges do you think they face in your country? Please like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and share your views in the comments below.
In our final section, we'll bring everything together, looking at the Great Wall's future. We'll discuss how new generations connect with the wall, what it means for the world today, and how we can all learn from this ancient wonder.
We've traveled a long way together, from ancient myths and mighty emperors to modern preservation and global culture. Now, it's time to look forward. What does the Great Wall mean for the future? How can this ancient wonder continue to teach and inspire new generations, not just in China but around the world?
That's a great question, Adam. The wall is more than just a physical monument. It's a living legacy. It connects people to their past and reminds us all of what human beings can build, both in terms of strength and spirit. For young people today, the wall can be a powerful symbol of perseverance, unity, and identity.
Exactly. As China and the world face challenges like globalization, cultural change, and environmental issues, the wall's story offers lessons about balance. It shows the importance of protecting traditions while also embracing innovation and cooperation. The wall reminds us that history isn't fixed. It's a story we keep adding to.
In education, the wall is an important tool. Schools use it to teach history, engineering, geography, and culture. Learning about the wall helps students understand not just facts, but also human experiences, what it means to work hard, face difficulties, and build something lasting.
The Great Wall's future also depends on sustainable tourism. As millions of people visit each year, there's a growing awareness of the need to protect the wall from damage and overcrowding. Technology, policy, and local involvement all play roles in making sure the wall can be enjoyed by future visitors.
On a global level, the wall serves as a reminder that cultural heritage belongs to all humanity. It's part of our shared history. The efforts to preserve it involve collaboration across borders, sharing knowledge, and respecting different perspectives. The wall encourages a sense of global community.
It also inspires creativity and dialogue. Artists, writers, filmmakers, and scholars continue to reinterpret the wall in new ways, sparking conversations about history, identity, and connection. This ongoing dialogue keeps the wall alive in people's minds and hearts.
Looking ahead, climate change poses one of the biggest challenges. Scientists warn that changing weather patterns could accelerate erosion. But this also drives innovation. New materials, better monitoring, and international support are helping to protect the wall in unprecedented ways.
The wall's future is also about storytelling. New generations will add their voices to the wall's long story, whether through writing, art, music, or digital media. Sharing these stories helps keep the wall meaningful and relevant in a fast-changing world.
And beyond China, the wall reminds us of universal themes: the desire for security, the cost of protection, and the human capacity to build and endure. Every country has its own walls, literal or figurative, and the Great Wall encourages us to think carefully about why we build them and what they mean.
As we wrap up this series, we want to thank all our listeners for joining us on this incredible journey. The Great Wall stands not just as stone, but as a story of power, pain, hope, and unity. We hope you've enjoyed learning with us and that you feel inspired to explore history and language more deeply.
Before we finish, please like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and let us know in the comments, what is your favorite lesson from the Great Wall? How do you think its story can help us today? Your thoughts are very important to us.
Remember, history is not just about the past, it's about the future we create. The Great Wall teaches us that with patience, courage, and cooperation, great things are possible.
Thank you for being part of this adventure. Stay curious, keep learning, and we'll see you soon on the English Globe. Goodbye.